Nickelodeon was my introduction to animation, but ended up playing second fiddle to Cartoon Network or even Fox Kids during that time. That's not to say the content was second best or bad, but I think Nickelodeon's hits and cartoons were more spread out than Cartoon Network's. And that's today's topics, Nickelodeon's top 15 Nicktoons. Already I feel the intense stares from the people waiting to judge my order and tell me I am wrong. Well, guess what? I'm going based off the impression these cartoons have left on me as a child, also on content and replay value.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Honestly, I only put this one in my list so I wouldn't get my head chewed off and as a fan service to those who hold this show in high regards. Originally, I had the Angry Beavers in this spot. But let's get into the cartoon that produced a generation of Hot Topic shoppers and grr fanatics. Invader Zim was about the aliens, the Urkins, who send Zim to Earth due to it being the farthest planet from the universe, and also because Zim is a megalomaniac and hinders their plan instead of helping. The animation style matched the comic, but the style was just too off-putting and too emo for my taste, and also felt claustrophobic. Invader Zim was an okay show, and Nickelodeon thought so too, as it was cancelled after 2 seasons.
You stink! Go to the bathroom and roll around in the toilet!
However, it does have a TV movie coming out soon.
No! You lie! You lie!
I enjoyed Real Monsters. Now, I can't tell you what my favorite episode is, but I can say that as a kid, this show was pretty freaky and out there. If this was aired today, I wouldn't be surprised if it was mistaken for an Adult Swim show. The show is about 3 monsters in training in a dumpster in New York, following the mischievous adventures of Ickis, the son of a prodigy, Oblina, who is basically the Hermione Granger of the show, and just good old Crumb. They come across monster hunters and allies alike. It's a slice of life show, but of monsters. Kind of like Monsters Inc., but without the child abduction.
Well, nobody's perfect.
The animation matched the work of other classic super work, which I think benefited the show since it was a creepy style. I rewatched a couple of the episodes to see if it holds up, and I did enjoy it. There are some jokes that fly over your head as a kid. Still, the nostalgia factor alone makes this show enjoyable. The show does quite a few monster parodies, which is pretty funny, and it's pretty great to see how they do it. So please, check out Real Monsters, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I think this was Nick's first attempt at action cartoons, and it was quite successful, I think. This cartoon debuted on Nick's Oh Yeah Cartoons in 1999, and finally came to series in 2003. It starred XJ9, or how she likes to be called, Jenny, a teenage robot created by her mother, Dr. Nora Wakeman, and follows her teenage life with fellow friends Brad, Tuck, and Sheldon. The show explores a typical teenage social life and life problems such as dying from embarrassment, fitting in, popularity, and teenage love, all the while protecting the city from monsters, aliens, and other robots, and also having to deal with the Crust cousins in school.
In fact, some of the most popular kids are the nastiest.
Now, Britt and Tiff Crust are two of the most snootiest and snobbish people you ever see in this show. They set out to make Jenny's high school life miserable after she put him in jail in the first season. At some points, you wish that Jenny just let them die because they have crossed numerous lines where just like, really? Come on, she just saved your life. The show's animation was different and not something that I would associate with Nick, but more in line with Cartoon Network's whole flat and simple style. The show was vibrant and full of color and had some great action scenes. Unfortunately, it was cancelled due to low ratings, and we never found out if Jenny ended up with Brad or Sheldon. It's 2017, people. Robosexuals is a thing.
Date?
Imagine if Tony Hawk's Underground became a TV show. Now take that, and imagine the Rugrats as extreme sports enthusiasts, and you get... Rocket Power! Besides Brink, Rocket Power made me want to get into extreme sports. From rollerblading, mountain biking, and skateboarding, I succeeded in none of them, and I have the scars as reminders. Rocket Power started a group of friends Otto and Reggie Rocket, Twister Rodriguez, and Sam Dullard, who is a new kid in town.
Ew, they got sand in the potato
We
salad!
follow Team Rocket as they compete in various competitions and learn that winning isn't always everything, and that their friendship is more important. The show also dedicated episodes to each character, which gave them depth and personality, and showed just how strong their friendship was. The show style was crude and was nothing pretty to look at. That's just how Classy Super works, folks. But it was vibrant and full of color, which made the scenery stand out so much more. And I think that's one thing about Rocket Power, is that their scenery was pretty much top-notch. Besides Otto, Tito was my favorite character from Rocket Power due to his ancient Hawaiian sayings and how he was just so full of wisdom. He was basically Uncle Iroh before we had Uncle Iroh. Some of my favorite episodes of Rocket Power was the TV movie Race Across New Zealand, due to the fact that the stakes were raised and there was a risk factor there that wasn't in previous Rocket Power episodes. It also made me want to travel to New Zealand so much more. I wouldn't mind watching Rocket Power again, since it made extreme sports really appealing, and I wanted to go out and try all these sports. But hopefully you have better luck in it than I ever did. So if you get a chance, please check out Rocket Power. Do you see yourself as a normal person in your group of friends, or think the world around you is ridiculous? Then you are probably going to like Rocko's Modern Life. Rocko is a humble, mellow wallaby who minds his own business and likes to read comics. His best friends are Heifer Wolf and Filbert Shellbach. It was regular show before regular show even existed. Watching the show again, I question how some stuff got past the censors. Maybe people weren't so sensitive back then. The writing of the show felt real and personal. It didn't follow the formulaic model most cartoons use. It could be that Joe Murray, the creator, had his staff go on writing trips so that they can bring a personal level to Rocko's. It's a good slice of life show, but with ridiculous situations, and with characters who are on the verge of mental instability, which makes Rocko's great. After rewatching Rocko's Modern Life, I find myself relating to Rocko a whole lot more, not just because he's into comics and also works in what I consider a dream job, a comic book shop, but because he doesn't like to be out of his comfort zone and tends to mind his own business. The animation styles seem to draw inspiration from comic books and also from the golden age of animation from Warner Brothers, with most of it relying on sight gags and visuals, and the crisp outlines and exaggerated shapes. Rocko's had a unique style to it. I think you'll enjoy Rocko's Modern Life if you give it a shot.
Comic books are my life.
Ever wonder what it's like to grow up in a big family? Well, don't let the picture fool you. It's not all sugar and spice. Don't believe me?
It's as if someone took my living situation growing up and made a TV show about it. A Loud House deals with the many problems having a large family brings. It stars Lincoln Loud and how he's the middle child between 10 sisters. I can definitely relate to having a large family, being Hispanic. And growing up, everyone lived in the same house.
Most importantly, problem solving.
And yeah, sure, it's great because you're always surrounded by people and never alone, and automatically have friends. But there was never any time to yourself or even having space to yourself. Those are some of the problems Lincoln Loud faces, and gets help from his friend, Clyde. His sisters all have distinct personalities, ranging from sporty, comedic, ditzy, and goth, and fashionista. Sometimes the series deals with the problems his sisters have and how Lincoln helps them solve it. Other times it's just how Lincoln doesn't lose his damn mind from not having time or space to himself. I like the animation style. It reminds me of the Sunday paper comics, such as Dennis the Menace. It's pretty fluid and simple. I mean, it just looks like a cartoon that was from during my time growing up. Funny enough, Lincoln is a huge comic book fan and tends to read his comics often in his underwear, just like how I used to do as a kid. And often cosplays as his favorite hero, Ace Savvy. And I'm sure some of you are starting to notice a trend with comics here. The Loud House seems to be Nick's next big animation hit, since it's on as much as SpongeBob, and has even taken over a few SpongeBob slots. So check it out, and I'm sure you'll be a fan. This show started out as a movie I begged my dad to take me to see. Usually, I'm not a fan of CGI animated cartoons, but I like Jimmy Neutron. I always had a fascination with science, and it was cool to see the invention that Jimmy came up with. The series followed Jimmy and his friends Carl and Sheen. Carl is what I believe to be one of the most underrated characters ever. Sheen too, but Carl steals the show sometimes. Jimmy also had a love-hate relationship with Cindy, which surprisingly their relationship was developed over the series. The show had an invention of the week formula, where whatever Jimmy invented at the beginning would cause trouble for them, but in the end, the same invention would bail them out. It was not always story-centric, but I think the episodes that rely on past episodes are the best. The series even parodies other great pop culture and franchise works, such as the Justice League, and the X-Men, and even Star Wars. It was a fun show, and it sucks it didn't get the ending it deserved, but that shouldn't discourage you from watching it. The CGI wasn't as crisp and clean as it was in the movie, and appeared to be more bulgy in the series. But the problem that I have with CGI animation is that the settings appear to be dull and empty. But that wasn't always the case here with Jimmy Neutron, who seemed to take full advantage that CGI gave them. So please, check out Jimmy Neutron, and I'm sure you'll be a fan, and also like the wacky adventures he has.
Hold down! Take it easy! What the scallop? I'm a goofy goober!
The longest running Nicktoon ever, and basically a farm for memes. I know that's a dated reference, but it's true. Anyways, I do love Spongebob. I wasn't always a fan at first, but one road trip to the Great Wolf Lodge changed that, along with the Krusty Krab pizza. After that, I noticed a lot of clever dialogue and witty humor that just made the show so much better.
Mayonnaise an instrument?
No, Patrick.
The show has an ensemble cast of characters ranging from Patrick, Squidward, Sandy, Mr. Krabs, Pearl, Mrs. Puff. Hell, even the background characters get to stand out once in a while. I think the characters that make this show, especially Patrick. That guy is a genius, and he is easily my favorite character.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
There are loads of great episodes, and too many to just name some of my favorites. But some of my favorites do include parodies of popular franchises, or any where Patrick is just in the forefront. Given its long run, some may be better than others. Kinda like The Simpsons, the old ones might be better. If you're looking for a laugh from visual gags or witty dialogue, or just want to know where that meme came from, please check out SpongeBob SquarePants.
This is me, Wild Thornberry.
Were you a fan of the Crocodile Hunter, or the Jeff Korn Experience, or just nature shows in general? Well, here's a cartoon that's sort of like it. The Wild Thornberrys is a nature show cartoon that follows Eliza and her family. Their parents are zoologists and they travel the world documenting animals.
Smashing!
It's quite an enjoyable show with educational properties, and teaches you to show sympathy to wildlife, and at the same time it explores the various cultures of the world. I've actually learned a lot about wildlife from the show, such as don't mess with ecosystems or the natural orders, and yes, sometimes animals eat other animals. The show had some serious star power behind the mic, with the great Tim Curry voicing Nigel, Lacey Chabert as Eliza, otherwise Gretchen from Mean Girls, and even the Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers doing the voice of Donnie. Masterful work there if you ask me. Again, the animation is nothing pretty to look at, but it just seems to work here with the animals and wildlife. It's from animation studio Class B Supo, the creators of Rocket Power and Real Monsters. If you're looking for a fun adventure and want to learn more about cultures and animals, then the Wild Thornberrys is a must. So check it out and you will definitely be a fan. Poor Timmy. No one understands him. I mean, who can when he has his own personal fairies? I remember watching the pilot episode on Oh Yeah Cartoons and I thought, hey, I want more of this, and I soon got my wish. Pun intended. Barely Oddparents deals with Timmy and what seems to be a miserable 10-year-old life, where your parents ignore you and Satan is your babysitter, aka Vicky. The show has really grown and expanded its lore, covering just about every magical being such as the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny, and even some holidays like April Fools, and even Christmas where we see that Santa becomes fat for one day out of the year. The animation style is different compared to other cartoons. It's flat with bold outlines, kind of like stickers sort of, but that's just how Butch Hartman's style is. It doesn't change much. What stood out most for me from the series were the TV movies, due to the consequences and the high risk factor that they presented. One of my favorite ones was Channel Chasers, which they parodied a bunch of old cartoons and franchises that we all love. Throughout the series, we see that Timmy is pretty selfish and self-absorbed, but in the end, we learn that he has a heart of gold and tends to do the right thing. The show has jumped into numerous sharks, with a baby fairy, a fairy dog, and now that there's a fairy shortage and now he has to share his fairies with another girl. But you don't have to watch that.
This is where I put a trophy. If I had one!
Every time I think of Rugrats, the theme pops into my head. It was one of the original cartoons I watched as a kid, and also a show that truly influenced me and my imagination. The show was fantastic. Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil, and Angelica all went on crazy adventures, at least in their imagination. It gave perspective as to how kids see the world. Like, the garage can just be the garage to us, but to them, it was a huge space station. Given that this is the 4th Class B Super show on this list, you can see that their animation style isn't different from each one. But I think it fits best with the Rugrats, given that we see everything from the baby's perspective, and that Class B Super's creepy and crude style seems to be how babies might see the world. What probably stood out most from the series were the moments that just tug on your heartstrings and brought you on the verge of tears. Such as the episode titled Mother's Day, where all the babies find gifts for their mothers except for Chucky, and they try to find him a new mom, but along the way we discover what exactly happened to Chucky's mom. But let's not end on a sappy note here. There's some other great Rugrats episodes filled with laughs and wacky adventures, such as The Big Flush, where the babies enter a water park thinking that it's just one huge toilet, or the ones where they play football for a bottle of chocolate milk. And the entire time I'm thinking, it's like, man, who is gonna clean that mess up? The show grew over the years and spawned 3 movies, and even added some new characters like Dale, Tommy's baby brother, and Kimmy, Chucky's stepsister. It stands the test of time, and has some great adult jokes you may have missed as a kid. So, check out Rugrats.
Only Space Vixen. That's for after you go to bed.
The one thing I never got was how and why Arnold had a football-shaped head. A majority of the characters had strange designs, but even then, the show was phenomenal. A slice-of-life show about a kid growing up in the inner city, Hey Arnold had it all. Comedy, romance, drama, horror. It really made you feel you were a part of his world, and a diverse one at that too. Hey Arnold touched a lot of topics you wouldn't see in today's cartoons. And those are heartfelt moments too. Arnold grew up in a boarding house with his grandparents, Phil and Gertrude, along with a cast of other characters like Oscar and Susie Kokoschka, Ernie Potts, and Mr. Wynn, who was the subject of a very heartfelt episode. We follow Arnold on his adventures along with his best friend Gerald, and his other friends Stinky, Sid, Helga, Phoebe, Rhonda, and Harold. Some of the episodes deal with the whole boys versus girls, where Arnold and his friends compete with Helga and her friends, whether it's sports or synchronized swimming. Other episodes deal with Arnold helping someone out trying to make themselves better. The show also had probably one of the greatest love stories of my generation, and that was Helga and Arnold. We never got to see what actually happened of their relationship, but all we know is that Helga truly did love Arnold, and I don't know if she ever got a chance to tell him that. What I think is unique about Arnold though is that he's an optimistic 9-year-old who is full of ideals and tries to see the best in people, and always wants to help them out. That's something you don't see in today's cartoons a lot. There's loads of great episodes from Hey Arnold, and a lot of them you can learn morals or even just how to be a better person from them too, which I think is what makes this show stand out the most. Also, there's something about traditional animation that just makes it better. I love the detail that went into the show, how each building is unique and different and just makes it feel real, like as if you were actually there. If you haven't watched Hey Arnold, you should, and you won't be disappointed, and I'm sure you'll be a fan. The show may have been cancelled, but we are getting a TV movie where we do find out what exactly happened to Arnold's parents. That comes out this winter. I remember when Danny Phantom first premiered, I was made fun of because I wanted to watch a cartoon over Pimp My Ride. Well, at least Danny Phantom never made anyone broke. Unfortunately, both got canceled in 2007, but Danny Phantom seems to be coming back. Danny Phantom was about a boy named Danny Fenton. I know, pretty clever. A high schooler who got ghost powers through an accident in his parents' lab. He hunts ghosts with his friends Sam and Tucker. It's like Spider-Man, but with ghosts. And no dying uncles here. Besides the Spider-Man similarity, Danny Phantom has a heavy comic book influence, not just from the whole superhero vibe that you get from the show, but from the title cards that you see in the beginning of each episode. You can also see the comic influence in the action scenes, given that the angles they choose seem to be straight out of comic panels themselves. Even Danny's rogue gallery seems to have comic book influence. To highlight some villains are Johnny 13, Skulker, Vlad Plasmius, Pariah the Dark, Fright Night, Desiree, and his most feared villain, the Box Ghost. I'm just kidding about that one.
Natural abilities.
The animation style here is similar to Butch Hartman's other works such as Tough Puppy and The Fairly Oddparents, but here he changes it up a little bit where it matches American comic book styles. There are also some great visual cues here, such as when Danny detects a ghost or goes ghost, everything around him changes purple. And all the ghosts seem to have some green hue to them as well. With the ghost being green, it kind of reminds me of Slimer from Ghostbusters. The show did a great job of developing relationships between characters, such as Danny and Sam, who are friends at first, but become a couple at the end of the series. The writers never rush a relationship though, as we see subtle hints and exploration between the two of them throughout the series. Another relationship is with Danny and Vlad Masters, who is also Vlad Plasmius, his arch enemy. They both know each other's secret, but they won't rat each other out due to the consequences they might have on each of them. With Danny and his parents, and with Vlad and Danny's mom, Maddie, who might not love him. I hope the show does get a revival and can get the ending it deserved, not how it did with Phantom Planet. So please check out Danny Phantom and go Ghost. I always thought of myself as having a wild imagination, and it wasn't until I rewatched Doug where I realized where I got that from. I also realized just how heavily Doug influenced me as a kid. Doug followed the title character Doug Funny's life as he moved into a new town called Bluffington. And we follow his everyday life and the moral lesson he learned at the end of each episode, which we find out when he writes into his journal. What stands out about this show is that every episode or situation Doug is in feels real and personal, and it's something we all can relate to at one point. The show had a vast array of characters like Skeeter Valentine, Patty Mayonnaise, Mr. and Mrs. Dink, Phoebe Bluffs, Alan Mo Meach, and even Roger Clockets. There's more characters and even more were added when Disney picked up the series, but I'm just gonna stick to the Nick one for right now. All of these characters seem to have genuine personalities, and I'm sure we can relate them to people we have met at one point in our lives as well. Doug's wild imagination has him fantasize scenarios that most likely would never happen, or parodies pop culture figures when he becomes Smash Adams, Race Canyon, or even his own superhero, Quail Man. Sometimes he imagines his worst fears also, like everyone thinking he's a loser, or Patty Mayonnaise just simply rejecting him. The series has many great standout episodes. One of them is Doug and Patty sitting in a tree, where Doug doesn't know if he's going on a date with Patty. So Skeeter steps in and gives him advice that I still follow to this day. Another great episode is Doug Says Goodbye, where we see just how strong Doug and Skeeter's friendship is, where Doug thinks that Skeeter is gonna move away, and there's one scene that's just pretty chilling in that episode. I know the animation isn't crisp or clean like today's, but I like it. It's unique and fits the style, I believe. If it wasn't for Doug, I wouldn't be having imaginary sequences in my head, or even imagination at that. Hell, Doug has taught me how to be a good person, which is why I think you should check out Doug.
That older, more mature person was me.
If you look up masterpiece in a dictionary, you'll see the definition of masterpiece, which is what this show is. In art direction, culture, humor, themes, and morals, this show captures it all beautifully. The premise is about Aang, a 112-year-old boy who is the Avatar, the only being able to control all four elements: fire, air, water, and earth. Aang needs to master all four elements in order to challenge the Fire Lord and end the 100-year war that has plagued his world. Each nation's bending style seems to have drawn inspiration from various martial arts forms. For water, it is Tai Chi. For earth, Wanga style Kung Fu. Fire is Northern Shaolin Kung Fu, and for air is Ba Gua Zhang. I really hope I pronounced the last one correctly. Because of this, the action sequences are a sight to behold because the fighting appears as art. The characters are a big highlight of the show, not just from the main cast, but supporting characters too have their moments to shine. Nick really put out a phenomenal show out here, and there are so many great episodes such as The Blue Spirit, Tales of Ba Sing Se, Siege of the North, Crossroads of Destiny are just a small sample of what this show can portray. I would love to do a series review of this show simply because there's so much to talk about. Other than that, do yourself a favor and check it out. I'm sure there's something you'll enjoy of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Well, that's my top 15 Nicktoons. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Did I miss any shows? Are there any that you would like for me to elaborate on? Thanks for watching another episode of Geek Night.